Are you passionate about cattle, ranching, and the future of agriculture? Then Cattleman U podcast is for you. Every week, we dive deep into cattle markets, share expert tips, and tackle today's biggest challenges in ranching. From weaning and preconditioning to preparing your herd for winter, we've got you covered. Whether you're new to ranching or a seasoned pro, you'll find valuable pieces in every episode. So join us on the Cattleman U podcast. Subscribe today and get insights you need to keep your ranch thriving. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the Cattleman U podcast. I'm your host, Caroline Rose Bohannon, and I'm sitting down with Jim Sitz today. One of the things that I like to credit to Jim is my marketing in the seed stock industry. You really gave me the opportunity when I was in college to try a bunch of things, and I had fun and enjoyed some things, and I think it kind of showed you a little bit about internet opportunities. So for those of you who don't know Jim, would you just give a little background and kind of introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Jim Sitz. I've been blessed with this opportunity in the seed stock business for, my dad passed away and everybody pretty much knows it, but he passed away in 89 and my brother and I fell into this role of managing this operation. And of course, we still had my mother as our boss, that pretty much kept us on the straight and narrow. But my family has been in the seed stock business since 1923 and that's been the registered Angus business, not just Angus business, but the registered Angus business. And, we've been very blessed over the years to be able to do what we love and enjoy and be able to do with the ones we love. We're very fortunate to have a lot of family on this operation. And it's been very fun.
You do have a lot of family. We're going to dive into that a little bit. One of the things is you just hit 100 years. So in 2023 would have been 100 years in business. And over those 100 years, what has Sitz Angus become known for?
I think we've been very fortunate to have some of the very best herd bulls in the breed, But I would say when people think of Sitz Angus Ranch, they think of one thing is the maternal base behind our cows, and they think of family. I guess when we have customers come, those are the two things. I believe that two of the most important things. Reason why they come is because they can come here and build off of our female base. Most of them are looking to build a cow herd. And that's one thing that we're very proud of is the cows that we produce and the cows that that we put out there in the industry. Those cows have gone on and done an extremely good job for the people that have purchased those cows. And my dad always said, in order to get a good bull, you have to have a good cow. So I guess I believe those two aspects are two of the most important. We don't. We don't just look at the maternal, but we look at all traits. Right to today, we're looking at a whole array of traits. From birth weights to growth to carcass to and one of the most important ones that we look at today is of course pap. We believe in our area that's a very important issue that's being faced by a lot of our customers, and a lot of people in high mountainous areas. You could also say that the people in the feedlot segment is also having issues with sudden death syndrome as these cattle get to be close to market size. And then the other issue, trait that we really look at closely is feet. We still, Sitz Angus Ranch still believes you have to look at the convenience traits. We owe that to our commercial customers, in order to try to keep them in business.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I think is hard is staying relevant and staying kind of cutting edge for 100 years. What have you guys kind of done to really stay, in front of the industry, both with the cattle you're raising, but just thinking outside the box and setting yourself apart from the competition?
Well, one thing you can't be afraid of is change. That's one thing that change is inevitable. None of us like change, but it's inevitable. So you have to have an open mind of where this industry is going to go and what the needs of your commercial customers are going to be. And you can't be afraid to look out there and put yourself ahead of the pack. Maybe you're not going to get paid for some of the selection pressures you put on, of maybe, I mean, when we first started pap testing, I'm telling you that you didn't get paid to do it. Even in the early days of when my dad believed in performance testing, people didn't see the value in it. They were worried about, okay, well, geez, we identify this top half of these bulls. What do you do with the bottom half? And you can't be afraid, I mean, you just have to look at the big picture of how you use the word relevant. To stay relevant, you have to be ahead of the curve. And again, you can't be afraid you have to have a little bit of a crystal ball and figure out where the industry is going. And I mean, we've been very fortunate to be able to do that.
Because I think that is one of the things when I think about your guys' operation is there's a lot behind the scenes, a lot of technology and testing and stuff to try to make sure you maintain that competitive edge. Because 100 years, if you kept the same mentality and you didn't change, you would not be relevant today if you had not adapted at all, right? Over 100 years. And I think we see operations where that happens.
I mean, if you look back, and I mean, I was a 60s baby, 68 baby. So I can only remember so much, but I get told on, kind of how our selection pressures went, and I guess, I look back and, when the industry was selecting small cattle, my dad felt like those cattle were irrelevant and he was looking for cattle, bigger cattle. When you had belt buckle size cattle, how relevant were they? From there you get into the 70s and, in the Montana Beef Performance Association, they started evaluating performance of cattle, so, I mean, you had a, basically a index, you wanted a high index, and Montana was really truly the first, and it wasn't just Angus breeders, there were Hereford breeders, I don't want to mention them because I'd leave somebody out, but there was a group of breeders that felt like performance testing was the future, and then from Montana Beef Performance Association, we went to HIR, which is, through the Angus Association, and they took it a step further. They developed ratios, to where you could, you had, we had ratios on cattle. Of course, you wanted the highest ratio you could get, which showed more performance. From there, in the later 70s, we were fortunate to have a bull and we did a test, on birth weight. People were using longhorns on their heifers. Dad felt like we could find bulls within the Angus breed, that we could breed to heifers, and you could have sleep all, they'd be sleep all night type bulls. And you didn't have to use, you could still have some bull that had some grow and some performance and have more economic value to them, and then, you get into the 80s, and we started ultrasounding, for carcass, and try to figure out, kind of where we were, which ones had more marbling, which ones had bigger rib eyes, which ones had more fat. From there, we went to DNA. Again, when you first started DNA and you weren't getting paid for, it was costly to DNA your cattle. And you weren't sure exactly at the end of the day what you were learning, but you felt like that there was value there. Look at it today. I mean, there's not very many cattle that aren't DNA'd, and what the value is of, it steps up the whole breeding process to figure out where you are. What's the future? I don't know what's going to be the next step. I don't know if I can answer that, but I think there's going to be a lot of. I believe the next step is going to be health. I think that, we're going to, between DNA, and some PAP data, maybe we're going to lead to some cattle that are a little more problem-free than other cattle, I guess that's kind of where I feel like, there's going to be some huge steps in the next couple of years.
We are so excited to bring you our fall Cattleman U store. We have worked with different artists, custom makers, and more to bring you a variety of fall ranch items. Whether you are currently living and working on a cattle operation or still dreaming about the long days riding in the pasture, our fall store items are for you. Enjoy the fall weather cozied up in your Cattleman U crew neck, custom brand wild rag, and burning your new favorite candle. In store, you will find all of this and more. We're now offering crew necks, t-shirts, hats, wild rags, mugs, custom coffee, custom scented candles, and matchboxes. Shop all of this at cattlemanUlive.com/store.
Yeah, we're seeing that concern on the feedlots because we're seeing less farmer feeders, more corporate feeders. And when you have a corporate feeder, they have one guy, that rides a lot of more cattle than they do on those farmer feeders, right? And so health is something that we're really seeing a shift in the market. Weaned calves that are vaccinated, these corporate guys can't take the risk like a lot of those farmer feeder did. And so I think that is probably some, down a path that we're going to have to figure out is, some of this antibiotic resistance, some of the genetic piece of keeping those animals healthier and lasting through the whole process.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think we're going to make huge strides in cattle health the next couple of years. I mean, between, BVD resistant cattle and I mean, if we can DNA these cattle and and we're not talking about I mean, we're still in the infancy stage of it as gene editing. I mean, how can that play into the avenues of cattle health? I mean, I don't have the answers to that yet, but I mean, I believe that we were not too far from discovering a lot of new ideas on how to help us with these issues.
Yeah, new options. One of the things I think about being kind of cutting edge and thinking outside the box is not only receiving, praises, but also some criticism. And I think some criticism can eat people alive, stop the risk taking, some stuff like that. How have you handled any criticism that you've gotten? Like, do you have a way to know you're on the right path? Is there mentors you refer to kind of listen to versus the public? Because nowadays with social media, everyone can say whatever they want about anyone. And I think that, that is people's fear when they're, have an operation or starting something and they're selling bulls for the first time. They really are worried about some negative feedback. So how have you handled that in the past? What do you guys, do you have a motto for that?
Yeah, paddle your own boat. I mean, honestly, I mean, you can't dictate your future off of somebody else's opinion. I mean, and my dad always told us, you have to paddle your own boat. That's the best way I can say that is, I mean, you can't, you might be wrong. You might be right. But unless you try, you'll never know.
Yeah, have some conviction.
Yep.
Chase what you're wanting to chase. Absolutely.
I honestly believe, I mean, this whole social media, but geez, we just got done with this election. So, I mean, man, there was opinion on everything. And, I didn't know a heck of a lot about social media until I met you, and I still don't know anything. So, I mean, you helped us out with that immensely, from the start, and, kind of helped Amber get going on it. And thank goodness that you helped her, because the social media wasn't necessarily my cup of tea.
No, and it can be really great, but it also can, there's a lot of keyboard warriors. And I think that just having a mentality and knowing that if you're chasing bigger goals, you're not going to please everyone, and you got to do what's right for your family and your legacy. And if they don't, if they don't like what you're doing, they can go somewhere else.
And one thing that I have noticed with social media is everybody's got a different style, and I mean, I'm not saying there's one right and one that's wrong. I mean, there's some that I like better than others. But at the end of the day, again, you just have to tell your story, and hopefully it resonates with your customers.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about family before we get into cattle. You are part of a family ranch, and that comes with really great joys and also some challenges. So describe kind of what your family situation looks like, and then talk a little bit about getting kids involved and how that conversation kind of gets started.
Well, my brother has 2 kids, Taylor and Lane, and they're part of the operation today. I have, excuse me, 4 kids and Tammy, which by the way, my wife is, I mean, we couldn't, none of us could do this without her. I mean, she's a very important part of our operation. And I mean, she puts the time in. I mean, she will be at all, she will do, I mean, she'll be outside, inside, wherever she needs to be. And anyway, it just, again, I just can't say enough about her to, how important, she is to this operation. But I have one son back, one son that's a senior in high school, and I have 2 daughters that are working off the farm. Um, yeah, when my mom was alive, one thing we tried to do is we tried to have meetings, monthly meetings, and we still try to do that today. And one thing that we have learned that you have to communicate, you have to, and I'm not saying I'm always great at it, but I try. But I try to have the meetings and we give everybody the chance to talk. And sometimes, you may not get the issue resolved at a meeting, but at least if you allow everybody to talk about it, it doesn't seem to be quite the issue. One thing that I'm having to have a little education to, a little gym education is, learning to communicate at a different level, because now we have a lot more people to communicate with. And it's important that if we want these kids to continue on with this operation, we have to allow them to have their opinions and time to tell us what their concerns are. And Bobby and I are getting older, and Bobby keeps telling me he's going to retire one of these days. And but in a family operation, the biggest thing that I can say is tell your kids what your goals are and include them and communicate with them and tell them what your wishes are. It's harder for older people, I believe, to tell the kids on what their expectations and wishes are. And don't wait, to give these kids responsibility. I think you have to give them responsibility at an early age and allow them to be part of these operations. If you want them to succeed, they have to be part of these operations and have voice.
Yeah. And I think communication is a family issue in our family as well. So it's not just you. My dad found group text messaging. So now we do get a lot of group text messages because that's the best way he's found to communicate. But I think the transition, right, to what will be the 3rd generation. Your kids are 3rd generation, right?
4th.
4th. The statistics would say that transition is nearly impossible. It's pretty hard to go from the 1st to the 2nd. And you guys have a unique opportunity to have kids both on and off the operation. Was that a conversation you had with them? Was that just their natural interest? What kind of advice do you have figuring out which kids want to come back?
Oh, and our kids they haven't been back very long. So we haven't, to sit here and tell you that we've got this all figured out, I'd be lying to you. We have quite a few employees, so it's a little more challenging. You still have to have a boss, and you have to be careful because sometimes you can have too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Probably the thing that we're looking for the future is for the kids to have, we need to probably do a better job of pinpointing, the kids' strong points and put these kids, direct those kids to their strong points, have them oversee the areas of where they're the strongest, and I wouldn't say that we've got this completely figured out yet to what that looks like. But I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking right now is, where we need to go in the future.
Assigning them some accountability.
Yeah.
This is your area. This is what you do. Develop a plan, come back to us.
And I've been fortunate to have some friends, that have very large family operations, and I see the successful ones that they have. I've got some friends out in South Dakota, and they meet every Monday morning, and they go over their week plans, and they talk about what they're going to do, and they all have separate areas, and I don't know. I don't know if we can quite do that, because we still all have to work together. I don't know how separate we can be. We can assign certain responsibilities, but at the end of the day, you know, we still kind of have to work together. And I mean, you know how it is on a
Yep.
family operation, you know, with the farming, we may all have to go help, you know, put the hay up, or, you know, if we're working cows, putting cedars in, you know, I mean, we all may have to work together, you know, and all hands on deck doing what we have to do during that, you know, to succeed, you know, I mean, with the labor situation today, I mean, we need to utilize as much of our family labor as we possibly can.
Yeah, we call that zone defense.
I see.
So when we are in a season where we have to cover and fill in, we call that zone defense. So when we're in the off season, we go back to man, but
I see.
in the craziness, like right now, zone defense. Whoever's at the place is processing cattle. So
We are taking Cattleman U around the country with our Cattleman U weekends on the road. In April, July, and November of 2025, join us for our weekends on the road. During these 3-day events, we'll be traveling across the country to dive deep into the topics that are at the forefront of cattle education. During separate dates of weekends on the road, we are going to be covering beef processing in Colorado, pasture management and grazing in Missouri, and starting your operation in Texas. You can join us for one or all. To learn more about the dates and the pricing of weekends on the road, click the link in the show notes. We can't wait to see you there.
okay, let's talk a little bit about the cattle. You guys have 2 bull sales a year. So a fall, winter, and spring sale. Talk a little bit about, you know, kind of the next round of generation that's coming up, what you're offering this year, and kind of what you're seeing genetics wise in the Angus industry.
We're doing a little different than, I mean, of course, I mean, we're paddling our own boat of the way, you know, that we breed our cattle. We're not, I learned a long time ago, you know, you don't just use what's popular. Use what you think is right for your program. Do research, you know, look at, you know, I mean, when we go and pick out herd sires, you know, I may be gone for 4 days and we'll go look at progeny, you know, we'll go look at the bull, we'll look at the dam. So we kind of have an idea, you know, you better, in generations in agriculture and cattle turn pretty slow, and you better do all the homework you can do, you know, so to make the least amount of mistakes that you can. And you'll still make mistakes. But, you know, for these sales coming up, and we're just about, you know, December 5th, we're getting ready for our, what is this? Our 60th fall bull sale this, and, you know, this year in that sale, we'll sell 425 18-month-old bulls along with 400 females. You know, the bulls that'll be in this fall sale, a lot of them will be out of Resilient. You know, he was a bull that topped our sale a number of years ago. And I mean, the industry, he was the top registration bull in the Angus breed, and those cattle consistently do what we ask them to do, from growth to pap to making superb females. They have great feet, and he's the type of bull that's going to keep our commercial guys in business. And I mean, those are the type of cattle that we're after. And I mean, we don't, you know, we're not chasing extremes. We're trying to, I mean, our bread and butter is our commercial guy, not the purebred guy. I mean, you know, the purebred guy is kind of a little bit of gravy if he comes in and buys a herd bull. But I mean, you know, but he may buy a bull and you might not see a purebred guy for 4 more years. That commercial guy, he's in there year in and year out, and you have to keep him satisfied. And you better be breeding the cattle, you know, that's going to keep him happy, keep him in business. And anyway, that's kind of what we're chasing. In the spring, I live at Dillon, you know, and that's where we sell our yearling bulls. And the second Wednesday of March, we'll have a sale here on the Dillon Ranch, and we'll market 325 coming, or they will be yearling bulls, and just about 300 yearling heifers, replacement type heifers. And you know, in the spring sale, we're gonna use, or I mean, we'll have a large sire group out of Dignity. Dignity is a bull we sold to ABS that would be probably the lowest pap bull in the breed. Have absolutely, and he'd be in the top 1% for feet, for claw and angle. You You know, the cattle have some growth, they have some muscle. They're loaded with muscle, you know, and then we have the relevance. I mean, again, the feed is suburb on those cattle. I mean, we're thinking these females are going to be wonderful out of him. We have a lot of, I mean, in the spring sale, we have a lot of new genetics. I mean, well, a lot of times we'll try to identify some young bulls that we'll go on with out of the spring sale. I mean, you know, we can, you know, in the spring sale, we can move those genetics a little faster. You know, where in the 2-year-old deal, you know, by the time you breed those cattle, geez, you're damn near 3 years before they come up for sale. You know, so it's a little, I mean, you kind of got to be way ahead of the curve if you're gonna try to get ahead of on that 2-year-old sale.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things you taught me and my dad reiterated is, you know, with the number of cattle that I own, you're like, don't take a bunch of risks. Find a bull that's a couple years old, sold a lot of calves out of that you really like, and use that, because, you know, there is time to take risks in the Angus breed, and there's also times to kind of do what's proven and just raise some really good. And you guys have a pretty even mix of that, where you have some good stuff that's proven and then a little bit of some new genetics.
Well, and I always tell guys, you know, we sell semen. I always tell them, I said, you know what the proven bulls are, you know, and they're the ones that are going to keep you in business. And I mean, why do you want to take what is the purpose of a commercial guy trying to take a gamble on a young bull? I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you're going to go through the efforts of AI, and, you know, I always tell them, I said, use the proven bull and you'll be much happier 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Talk a little bit about what you're hearing from your commercial guys. Like, what are they saying about, you know, calves? Is there any things that they're hoping they can correct in the next couple of years, or what are you hearing from those guys?
I would say the thing that, you know, when you visit with some of these commercial guys, you know, I would say, you know, the retention hasn't happened, but if we have another really good year, I do believe that we will start to see retention in another year. And I think that the female deal, I think these guys are, again, you know, are looking for looking for bulls that are going to give them some females to go back into the herd with, you know. And I mean, new customers that come to us, I would say that they're trying to correct their female population within their herd, trying to put some more body substance into these herds and some fertility. You know, one thing I haven't talked about is fertility, and that's something that we have measured for a very long time. And we're very fortunate when you look in the Angus breed, you know, 5 of the top 10 bulls are Sitz prefixed bulls, you know, and that's quite an accomplishment when you think about that. And in that avenue, you know, I mean, it's new research, but I mean, it's encouraging to us to see the efforts that we have put into fertility, you know, start to, you know, again, you know. And I mean, if she doesn't breed, she's gone. You know, I mean, we try to have a very tight calving window. If you live to those standards, you know, I mean, I do believe that you're automatically you're putting fertility in your cows. But I don't know. I mean, I'm excited about where this cow deal is going to go, where we're headed in this cow industry. And, you know, and then, you know, when visiting with these commercial guys, I think they have some excitement. You know, probably the thing that worries me is, you know, is the age of a lot of our producers.
Yeah, what is 65 or something? I mean, we see it, you know, we talk about it more frequently in cattle buying, because when I go sit in a sale barn, they're all the same age as my dad. And at some point, there's not going to be anyone to buy cattle. But I think that is a concern. One of the things that I think, you know, your genetics have played a role, but just in the area that we live, it leads to really high quality commercial cows. And so we see some really great calves come out of this area. You know, it's not a surprise for someone to wean a set of 650-pound or 700-pound steer calves. And when you talk to other regions, it's just not like that. And I think a lot of that has to do with the great purebred genetics that are in this area, and people are buying bulls and keeping females, and we see that quality.
Now, we're fortunate to live where we do, and our customers, you know, they take pride in what they do. They're they're as proud of their product as we are of ours. I rep cattle for Northern, and you know, when you go to ship their cattle, they're very proud. I mean, they're proud of what they're producing, and they have every right to be, you know. And I mean, mean, it's fun to go get on these commercial guys' operation and deliver these cattle. I mean, on shipping day, everybody's in a pretty good mood, and unless it's a dry year and they're 50 pounds light, and then there may not be quite as in a happy mode. But like this year when these prices are the way they are, and I haven't ran into anybody that was down in the mouth this year yet.
Yeah, no, they all like their check this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And feeders really like to feed Montana cattle. I mean, they tell me all the time, there's nothing like a set of Montana calves, and a lot of times that reputation is just because of how good the commercial cattlemen around here are.
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
the quality.
No, and I believe that to be true. I mean, these cattle go. I mean, you think about where our market is as good as anywhere in the country. When you think about what Montana calves bring,
Yeah,
we're sitting in a really good spot.
absolutely. If you were going to talk to a young producer who was going to get into the seed stock business, what are some words of wisdom, some things you would encourage them to do so that they could have a similar legacy in 100 years to what you guys have done?
Well, you have to take chances. I mean, you can't be afraid to take chances. But I mean, I tell young people, and the first things to, go, don't go out there and go buy a $50,000 heifer. Go buy a set of proven cows. Find somebody that's going to disperse, and or go find somebody that's willing to help you with an old donor cow. To where you can get started with a cow that's been, that has been tested, through time, and has progeny, and that what they have done. Have patience. Go seek. I mean, of course, you're asking me what I would tell them. I mean, don't be afraid to go. One of the biggest things is don't be afraid to ask questions. Go talk to somebody that you respect in the industry, and everybody that I know that has been successful at this is more than willing to, do whatever they can to help a young producer get started, and ask lots and lots of questions. I tell my kids, I tell my kids that today is you can't be afraid to pick up the phone. If you don't know, don't be ashamed of the fact that you don't know. Go ask.
Yeah, answers are already no if you don't ask.
Yep.
And if you don't know it, someone can help you with it. And I think, that mentoring of young producers, I really feel like the industry thinks there's a lot of competition, so they can't pick up the phone. But we all know that, the more options, the better. And we need people in this world raising cattle. There's not going to be enough in the next generation. And so there's a lot of encouragement, a lot of mentors out there to help people get started.
Probably one of the biggest challenges that I see, I mean, we are seeing a lot of vertical integration, happening in the beef industry. And, that's probably one of the things that kind of scares me a little bit about where we're going. And again, it's change, so we have to figure out how to adapt.
Yeah. What excites you the most about the next 10 years?
Probably for me, it's being involved with the generations coming back on our operation. And I think that in the cattle, and I think in agriculture, I think there's lots of opportunities that are going to present themselves here in the next few, really in the next 10 years. I mean, I think there's opportunities in this business because, I mean, you look at where the cow numbers are today, and I don't know how much we'll rebuild this cow herd. I mean, I think we'll rebuild it to some degree, but we'll never build it back to where it was. But, I believe that, in the United States, we absolutely have the best protein source of anywhere in the world. We have, I mean, look at the big picture from our farming practices. I mean, most farming practices were developed in the U.S. And they may have been fine tuned elsewhere to where they don't have as much regulation. But I mean, but I don't know. I just feel like we're going to see some opportunities in all segments of agriculture, and hopefully a margin of profitability that we have truly needed in agriculture. And I'm excited to see that, we've needed that in agriculture. The farm, in the farming world, they get subsidized. But in the cattle deal, we really haven't been, we really don't get subsidized to the way that the farmers do. And, if maybe this last year, I've seen more new trailers, pickups, maybe a little addition on, the wife's kitchen, and good for them. I mean, maybe a new set of corrals. That's, I mean, it's been a long time coming, to where maybe hopefully, people in these ranch families can, put a little bit back into their pocket and
Kind of new hope.
yeah.
Yeah. Because it's always the cattle industry, for a long time, we've heard it to break even business. You're in this to break even. If you break even every year, that's successful. One of the things I think we see is people who have long-term success in the industry find opportunities no matter what the market looks like, no matter what the weather looks like, and finding those whole of opportunities. But it doesn't have to be just a break-even business. And I think there are some changes that we're going to see in agriculture, because I think we're starting to figure that out. Like, this has to be a business, and it has to, at the end of the year, there has to be a salary in there. We can't work for 20 or 30,000 anymore.
The old saying is, most ranchers are, land rich and cash poor. And I mean, I believe that to be true, I mean, most ranchers live pretty, pretty thrifty. If you made it through the 80s, you knew what hard times were.
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for the next 10 years. I just really think that there's going to be some exciting things that's going to happen. And even, I mean, you and I were talking about earlier, I mean, there's opportunities with LDPs, or LRPs, excuse me, for ranchers and, whether you're a cow-calf operation, and at least you can protect your, at least there's some new things happening to where you can protect yourself a little bit. If you like the price and you want to lock in, great. I mean, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah. Mitigate some of that risk. It felt like
Exactly.
hedging and some of those were kind of off table for cow-calf guys and LRPs and some of that rainfall insurance. There's some things out there to
Exactly.
really help soften that risk.
Yep. I mean, and the rain and the rainfall insurance, I mean, it's been great for a lot of people. And so I mean those programs were needed. So
yeah. Okay, last question. Tell me a little bit about some sire groups to watch over the next bull sale season. What do you think we're going to see?
Well, in the next couple of years, we're going to see. I mean, we bought a bull out of Canada called High Country, and we're very excited about what that bull is. He's a low birth bull, which will be, those cattle will hit just in time for, they'll hit next year. So hopefully for people that are starting to retain some heifers, but that bull has got some phenotype in him. I mean, super feet. I mean, big top. Lots of middle, low pap. I mean, we're very excited about those cattle. I mean, Dignity is another bull that's going to continue to be used in our operation. Last year we sold a bull we called Intellect. Again, he's a low birth, high growth. I mean, he's out of a super cow. Super feed under him. A lot of carcass merit in that bull. We're very excited. I mean, we're going to get a lot of calves out of all three of those bulls. And I mean, we think that that's going to be the future of our program.
Perfect. Absolutely. Looking forward to watching them. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I bred to Resilient this year.
Awesome.
Some of my cows. So I'm just 3 years behind. I like
see.
him to be a little bit
well,
more
you're
proven.
using the proven bull that you know what he is.
Yeah, I don't have enough cows to take risk. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cattleman U podcast. Please like and subscribe and follow along for the next one.